Hi, this is Paul Rose. I'm a guitarist from England, and this is my very first podcast. Planning a series of 7 podcasts to begin with, each telling the story of the 7 albums that I've done. And this is part 1 of the story of Homework. Okay, that was Car Show from Homework, which was the first album that I released. It came out on cassette in the early 1990s, and it was, like everything that I've done, it hasn't ever been recorded with the intention of making it into an album. But that one, I remember the guitar solo on that was recorded standing on top of the amplifier. I just had this idea. I'd sort of become a bit stagnant playing the guitar in the room where I had my recording equipment at the time, and for some reason I climbed on the amp and saw the room in a different way, give us a different feel for the environment that I was in, and that solo came out first take after struggling quite a bit to get a decent solo on that. For the most, all of Homework, I used a late 84-85 Japanese Squire Strat and an alligator amplifier, and what I did was I put this Akai microphone that I had, which was lent to me by Stevie Lee, a percussionist who was working with Archie Brown as I was at the time. He lent us this microphone, and I just lent it up against the speaker on this alligator amplifier, and then threw a load of cushions over it and smothered it completely, sort of turned the volume up on the amplifier a little bit, and then added reverb and a little bit of EQ and that. And that was recorded on a Fostex 8-track reel-to-reel using a Fostex 8-channel mixing desk with this very basic Alesis reverb machine that I had, and a borrowed Roland drum machine. But that track went well. People liked that one. It's a very basic, just a 12-bar. Sped up the end. At the end there's a 3-part guitar harmony. And the third one that I put on there, I had to slow the 8-track down because I couldn't make my fingers go fast enough. I can't remember. This is my first podcast. The plan is that I'm going to begin with a series of 7 podcasts, and I've made 7 CDs, so there's going to be 7 podcasts, and it's going to be the story of, and this one is Homework, which is the first one I ever did, and hopefully you will be able to work out a way to get them online, and hopefully you might be listening to the 40th or 50th podcast in a few years time and listen back to the very first one. So anyway, my website is paulrose.co.uk. Some of you may already know that, some of you may not know who I am at all, but I'm going to stop talking and I am going to put the second track from Homework on now, and this one is called One on Loan. was One on Loan. Again, recorded in exactly the same room and on exactly the same equipment as Car Show was done. The reason that track is called One on Loan, you may be interested to know, is that I was fanatical about Frank Zappa's Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, and I loved the drums and I loved the bass lines of the three main Shut Up and Play Your Guitar solos, and so I tried to program a similar drum pattern into this Roland drum machine and stole the bass line, borrowed the bass line from Frank Zappa, and sort of put my own solo over the top of it, which is why it's called One on Loan. There is a point on that track which I cannot tell you exactly at the moment. Maybe I'll put it in the notes when I'm launching this on the web, where in the last solo after the break, the last solo, you can hear my daughter Laura, who at that time was about 8 or 9 months old or something like that, I can't remember, but she was crawling, and she came in and closed the bedroom door behind her as I was recording this guitar, and it shows up on the tape a little bit. I'll see if I can remember to put the exact point in, which you might not hear it, but that's one of my favourites, that actually. The re-release of Homework is twice as long as the original cassette release, which we did in the early 90s. For the obvious reason, digital. Now we can release CDs, and we can put lots of material on CDs or MP3. Thousands, millions of hours worth of stuff. But at the time, I was struggling considerably more than I am now, and we just did 20 minutes per side, so 40 minutes in total audio cassettes. I haven't even got a copy of that myself. Don't know where. If there is any lying about, someone give us a shout. I might have to pay for it myself. Anyway, this next track is Cilla and Margaret. I won't talk about this track until after it's played, so here we go, Cilla and Margaret. So that's Margaret Thatcher talking at the beginning of that track, and just a track that I created out of absolutely nowhere, without any plan or any idea, just to get a nice try and get a nice drum machine pattern, and and get some nice guitar work going on. It's a synth bass on that, which is a little bit harsh maybe. But there's a bit where there's in the middle where there's sort of these guitars going off in harmony with each other. Again, I can't tell you at which point exactly, because I don't know where it's going to show up in the entire MP3 once this is all added together. But anyway, Cilla and Margaret, one of my favourites. It's interesting to say that I thought, I didn't expect the excitement that came back to us after I'd put this stuff out. While I was recording it, I didn't know what was going to happen from it, and it didn't make us $1 million, obviously, but I found myself being taken quite seriously by guitar manufacturers and managers and record companies and so on, and this music really didn't have a place, I would say, in the market at that time, if it ever would have, in the mainstream record business music market. A blessing in disguise, I think I said on the artwork. But I did get involved with a manager off the back of this stuff, and we were going around record companies and going into big flashy recording studios, and nothing ever came of it. But one thing that I will say about when you have people putting you into recording studios and saying, well, come on then, you know, you did this stuff at home, now here we are, we're paying £500 a second or some ridiculous amount of money to put you into this recording studio. Do it again and do it better this time. Do the whatever. Do this track again. Improve it. Or trying to write and create something new when you've got the pressure of the clock ticking and the money going into the studio to use these huge flying faders, mixing desks by Neve with the flying faders and SSL desks, and musicians being the time being paid for, and I really didn't come out with anything of any great merit. I haven't even got copies of any of the stuff that I did at that time, because I was very unhappy, didn't enjoy the process at all, very naive and young, and didn't really understand what was expected of us. Anyway, that didn't go anywhere. But I don't mind, really. I've got my stuff out there now, up to a point. Anyway, I think that is more or less the end of part 1. Watch out for part 2. Thanks for listening.